The horizon begins to soften. At first, it is only a faint change, a quiet lifting of darkness. The deep blue of the night sky slowly gives way to a gentler shade. The stars, which once felt so close and steady, begin to fade one by one. The river reflects this change. The Nile, wide and patient, holds the early light on its surface. The water does not sparkle yet. It only glows faintly, like a memory of the sun that has not fully returned. Along the eastern edge of the land, a pale line forms. Dawn is coming. Inside the temple, the priest remains still for a little longer. His breathing is slow. His eyes are lowered. He listens, not for sound, but for a kind of quiet presence that fills the sacred room. Time moves gently here. There is no need to measure it. At last, he takes a small step forward. His hands move with care, reaching toward a low stone basin. The basin is filled with water drawn from the Nile before sunrise, when the river is considered pure and calm. He dips his fingers into the water. It is cool. He lifts the water to his face, letting it touch his skin. Then again over his hands. Slowly, deliberately, he washes. Each motion is soft and unhurried, as though the act itself is a form of prayer. Purity is important, not only of the body, but of the mind. The priest performs these small acts every morning, always in the same way, always in the same order. There is comfort in the repetition, a quiet certainty. He dries his hands with a piece of clean linen, folded neatly beside the basin. Then he turns toward the shrine. The doors are still closed. They are made of wood, covered with thin sheets of gold that catch even the faintest light. Carved patterns run across their surface, symbols of life, protection, and balance. The priest does not open them yet. There is more to be done. He walks slowly around the room, checking each small detail. A piece of dust on the floor is gently brushed away. A vessel is adjusted so that it sits perfectly straight. Nothing is left out of place. The temple must remain in harmony. Outside, the first birds begin to wake. Their calls are soft at first, a single note, then another. Soon, a gentle chorus rises from the reeds along the river. It is not loud. It blends into the morning air, becoming part of the quiet world. Far away, in the village, a door creaks open. A woman steps outside, carrying a clay jar. She walks toward the river, her steps slow and steady. The earth beneath her feet is cool from the night. She says nothing. The day has not fully begun. Back inside the temple, the priest prepares for the most sacred moment of the morning. He approaches a small table made of stone. Upon it rests a collection of items, each placed with care. A small jar of oil, a bundle of incense, fresh linen cloth, a few simple offerings, bread perhaps, or fruit gathered the day before. Each item has its place. Each item has its purpose. He picks up the jar of oil and holds it for a moment, feeling its weight. Then he sets it back down. Not yet. Everything must follow its proper order. The air inside the chamber grows slightly warmer as the light outside strengthens. A thin beam of early sunlight slips through a narrow opening high in the wall. It stretches across the stone floor, moving slowly almost unnoticed. The priest watches it for a brief moment. Then he turns back to the shrine. It is time. He steps closer and raises his hands. His fingers rest lightly on the edge of the doors. For a moment, he pauses again, as he always does. This pause is important. It is a moment between worlds, between night and day, between silence and action. Then, very gently, he opens the doors. Inside the shrine, the statue of the god is revealed. It is not large. It is not meant to impress with size, but with presence. The figure is carved with smooth lines, its form calm and balanced. The face is serene, untouched by emotion. The eyes look forward, seeing everything and nothing at once. The god does not move. But the room feels different now. The priest lowers his head deeply. He does not speak loudly. In fact, his voice is barely more than a whisper. Soft words, repeated many times over many years, flow quietly from his lips. They are not hurried. They are not changed. They are as steady as the river. He greets the god as one would greet a living being, because in his world, the god is alive, not in the way of people, but in a deeper, quieter sense. The statue is not just stone. It is a place where the divine rests. The priest begins the ritual of awakening. He takes a piece of fresh linen and gently wipes the surface of the statue. Every movement is careful. Every motion is respectful. He removes the dust of the night, though there is almost none. Still, the act must be done. It is not about cleaning. It is about care. Then he reaches for the oil. He pours a small amount into his hand and warms it slightly between his fingers. Then, with slow and steady movements, he anoints the statue. The oil gives a soft sheen to the surface, catching the growing light. The scent is faint. It mixes with the cool air of the chamber, creating a quiet atmosphere that feels both grounded and distant. Outside, the sun finally touches the edge of the horizon. Light spreads across the land. The river brightens. The birds grow more active, and the world begins slowly to wake. But inside the temple, time continues in its own gentle rhythm. The priest continues his work, unhurried, unchanged. He reaches for the incense. The small bundle is dry and carefully prepared. He lights it from the flame of his oil lamp. A thin trail of smoke rises into the air, curling softly as it drifts upward. The scent deepens. Warm, earthy, slightly sweet. It fills the chamber slowly, never overwhelming, always gentle. He waves the incense before the statue in slow, even motions, back and forth, again and again. Each movement is the same. Each breath is steady. The world outside grows brighter. But here, in this quiet space of stone and shadow, the morning unfolds like a slow, endless breath. And the priest continues, just as he always has, and just as he always will. The incense, it reflects the light in a quiet way, not shining, but gently holding the brightness. The carved face remains calm and still. The expression does not change. It has always been this way. The priest steps back slightly. In his hands, he now holds a folded piece of linen. It is clean, fresh, carefully prepared the day before, washed and dried with care, and kept in a protected place where no dust or impurity could reach it. He unfolds it slowly. The fabric makes almost no sound. It is light and smooth, moving easily between his fingers. He lifts it toward the statue, his movement steady and unbroken. Then, with great care, he begins to dress the god. The linen is wrapped gently around the figure. It is not rushed. Each fold is placed with attention. Each edge is aligned just so. The act is repeated every day, always in the same order, always with the same quiet focus. This is not simply decoration. It is service. The god is treated as a living presence, one who must be cared for, tended to, and honored in the same way each day. The clothing is part of that care, just as the washing and the oiling were before. The priest adjusts the final fold. He steps back again. For a moment, he remains still, observing his work, not with pride, but with a quiet sense of completion. There is no need to think about it. His hands already know what to do. They have learned over many years through repetition and patience. Outside, the sounds of the waking world grow slightly stronger. More footsteps now along the distant paths. The soft murmur of voices. The gentle splash of water as jars are filled at the river's edge. The village is beginning its day. But inside the temple, the rhythm remains slow and contained. The priest reaches for the small offerings laid out on the stone table. There is bread, simple and round, its surface slightly rough. There are pieces of fruit, perhaps figs or dates, their sweetness held quietly within. A small cup of liquid sits beside them, still and untouched. He lifts each item one by one. He places them carefully before the statue. Nothing is thrown down. Nothing is placed without thought. Each offering is arranged in a balanced way, forming a quiet pattern at the base of the shrine. This, too, is repeated every morning. Food for the god, not because the statue will eat, but because the offering itself carries meaning, is an act of giving, a gesture of respect, a way of maintaining balance between the human world and the divine. The priest lowers his head again. His voice returns, soft and low. The words are ancient. They have been spoken in this place for longer than anyone can remember, passed from one generation of priests to the next, unchanged, steady, like the flow of the Nile itself. He speaks them slowly. There is no rush to finish. Each word is given space. Each phrase is allowed to settle into the quiet air of the chamber. The sunlight continues to move. The thin beam that entered the room earlier has now stretched farther across the floor. It touches the edge of the stone table, then slowly climbs upward along the wall, bringing a gentle warmth with it. Dust in the air becomes visible for a moment, floating softly in the light. Then it disappears again into stillness. The priest completes the offering. He remains bowed for a short time. Then, very gradually, he straightens. The first part of his morning duty is done, but his day is far from over. He steps back from his shrine and turns away, though not completely. He does not show his back fully to the god. Instead, He moves with a careful awareness, always keeping a sense of respect in his posture. He returns to the stone basin. Again, he washes his hands. The water is still cool, though the air around him has warmed slightly. The act is the same as before. Slow, gentle, repeated without change. Clean hands, clear mind. This is how the rhythm continues. He dries his hands once more with linen. Then he lifts the oil lamp. The flame has grown smaller, now that the room is filled with natural light. Still, it remains steady, a small point of warmth in his hand. He walks toward the entrance of the chamber. Before leaving, he pauses. He turns his head slightly, just enough to look back at the shrine. The statue stands quietly, dressed and tended, surrounded by offerings and the faint scent of incense that still lingers in the air. Everything is in its place. Everything is as it should be. The priest lowers his gaze one final time. Then he steps out into the corridor. The temple halls are beginning to awaken as well. Though no one rushes, there is a quiet sense of movement now. In distant rooms, other priests begin their own routines. The faint echo of footsteps travels along the stone floors. Soft voices pass briefly, then fade again into silence. The temple is never truly loud. Even in its busiest moments, it remains a place of calm. The priest walks slowly through the corridor. The walls beside him are carved with images that catch the growing light. Figures of gods and kings seem to shift slightly as the sun moves, their shapes coming into clearer view. He has not stopped to look. He has seen them every day. They are part of his world, as familiar as the path beneath his feet. Ahead, a larger doorway opens toward an outer courtyard. The light there is brighter. The sky above is now fully awake, soft gold spreading across its surface. The sun has risen, though it is still low, casting long and gentle shadows across the stone ground. The air feels different here. Open, warm, quietly alive. The priest steps into the courtyard. He pauses again, just for a moment. He lifts his face slightly toward the morning light, though his eyes remain calm and relaxed. The warmth touches his skin, gentle and steady. This, too, is part of the rhythm, not written, not spoken, but felt. Around the edges of the courtyard, tall columns rise, their surfaces painted long ago in colors that have softened with time. Blues and reds and golds, now muted, still hold their quiet beauty. Small birds move along the edges of the stone, hopping lightly, pausing, then moving again. A breeze passes through. It carries the scent of the river. The priest lowers his head once more. Then, without hurry, he begins to walk again. There is more to be done. The day stretches ahead of him, not as a burden, but as a steady path. Each step already known, each moment already part of a pattern that does not change. And so he moves forward quietly into the next part of his long and gentle day. The courtyard holds the morning in a quiet way. The light rests gently on the stone floor, spreading slowly, as if it has nowhere else to be. The shadows of the tall columns stretch long and thin, reaching across the ground in soft lines that shift almost too slowly to notice. The priest walks along the edge of the courtyard. His steps remain even. There is no change in his pace. The rhythm of his movement matches the calm of the space around him. In one corner, a low table stands beneath the shade of a column. On our more simple tools of daily care, small clay vessels, folded cloth, a shallow bowl filled with water that reflects the pale sky above. The surface of the water is still, untouched by wind. The priest approaches and sets down his oil lamp. The flame flickers once, then steadies again. He reaches for one of the clay vessels. Inside is a fine powder, pale and soft. He takes a small amount between his fingers and rubs it gently into his hands, then along his arms. The motion is slow, deliberate as always. This is part of his continued purification. The day has only just begun, yet the acts of cleansing are repeated again and again. Not out of fear, but out of habit, out of care. The body must remain in a state of quiet readiness, just as the mind must remain clear and steady. He brushes away the excess powder. A faint trace remains on his skin, catching the light for a brief moment before it fades. Nearby, another priest enters the courtyard. He is dressed in the same simple linen. His head is also shaved, his expression calm. They do not greet each other with words. Instead, there is a small movement, a slight lowering of the head, a shared understanding. Silence is not empty here. It is full. The second priest moves to a different part of the courtyard, beginning his own quiet tasks. Their routines overlap, yet do not disturb one another. Each knows where to be. Each knows what to do. The first priest finishes with the powder and turns away. He walks toward a shaded passage that leads deeper into the temple. The air cools as he enters. The walls here are thicker. The light is softer. The sounds of the courtyard fade behind him, replaced by a deeper stillness. He moves through the passage slowly. On either side, small rooms open into darkness. Some are empty. Some hold storage jars, stacked neatly and sealed. Others contain simple tools used for the daily maintenance of the temple. Nothing is out of place. Nothing is left to chance. At the end of the passage, he reaches another chamber. This one is larger than the first, though not as sacred. It serves a different purpose. Here, the work is quieter, more practical, yet still guided by the same careful attention. Low tables line the walls. On them are scrolls made of papyrus, rolled and tied. Small brushes rest beside shallow dishes of ink. The surfaces are clean, though marked by long use. A faint smell of dried reeds and ink lingers in the air. The priest enters and pauses. Another figure is already there, seated on a low stool. He is older. His movements are slower, but just as precise. In his hands, he holds a brush, moving it gently across the surface of a papyrus sheet. The sound is soft, a light scratching, steady and calm. The seated priest does not look up immediately. He continues his work, finishing a line before setting the brush aside. Then he lifts his gaze. Their eyes meet briefly. Again, no words are spoken. The first priest steps closer. He reaches for a scroll from the table. It is tied with a thin strip of linen. He unties it carefully unrolling it just enough to view the surface. The symbols are familiar, lines and shapes arranged in careful patterns. Each one holds meaning. Each one is placed with intention. They tell of rituals, of offerings, of words that must be spoken in certain ways at certain times. The priest studies them quietly, not because he does not know them, but because the act of reading is part of the rhythm. It keeps the mind steady. It keeps the memory clear. He rolls the scroll closed again and sets it back in its place. The older priest returns to his writing. The younger one moves to a nearby table. Then he turns and leaves the room. Back through the passage, back toward the courtyard. The Nile lies in the distance, its surface now bright under the rising sun. The fields beyond are green in patches, where water has reached the soil. The village rests between the river and the temple, its low shapes blending into the land. The sky above is wide and pale. The priest steps forward onto the roof. He does not hurry. He walks to the edge and stands there looking out. The wind is slightly stronger here. It moves gently across his skin, lifting the edge of his linen robe just a little. It carries the scent of water and earth, mixed with the faint dryness of the desert beyond. He stands in silence. This moment is not marked by ritual words or formal actions. It is quieter than that. A simple pause, a space within the day where nothing needs to be done. He breathes slowly. The world below continues its quiet movement. A boat drifts along the river. A group of people gathers near the water's edge. Far off, a faint sound of voices rises and falls, carried softly by the air. The priest remains still. The sun continues to rise, and the day, unhurried and steady, continues to unfold. The priest remains on the roof for a while longer. There is no signal for when to leave. No bell, no call, no command. Only a quiet sense of time passing, felt rather than measured. The sunlight grows warmer. It settles across the flat stone beneath his feet, holding a gentle heat that slowly builds. The wind softens, then returns again in light, wandering breaths. Below, the life of the village continues to unfold. Small figures move along narrow paths. A man leads a donkey carrying baskets. A child walks beside him, stepping carefully to match the pace. Near the river, women bend slightly as they fill their jars, lifting them with practiced ease. The river itself remains calm. Its wide surface reflects the sky, now pale and clear. A single boat glides across it, guided by a long pole. The movement is slow, steady, without urgency. The priest watches, though not with focus. His gaze rests gently on the distance, taking in the shapes and movements without holding on to them. His thoughts do not linger. They pass quietly like the wind. After some time, he turns. He walks back across the roof, his steps light and even. The stone holds the warmth of the sun now, but it is not yet hot. The day is still young. He begins his descent. The steps lead him down into the shaded parts of the temple once more. With each step, The brightness fades slightly, replaced by the cool stillness of thick stone walls. At the bottom, he enters another passage. This one leads toward a different part of the temple complex. The air here carries a faint scent of stored grain and dried herbs. It is a working space, though it remains quiet. He moves toward a series of storage rooms. The doors are simple, made of wood, some left slightly open. Inside, large jars line the walls. They are sealed carefully, each one marked with small symbols that indicate their contents. Grain, oil, dried plants used for medicine or ritual. The priest steps into one of these rooms. The light is dim, filtered through a small opening near the ceiling. Dust floats gently in the air, visible only where the light touches it. He walks along the row of jars. His fingers move lightly across their surfaces, feeling for any change, any imperfection. He checks the seals, pressing gently to make sure they remain firm. Nothing is rushed. Each jar is given a moment of attention. This work is quiet, almost meditative. It requires no speech, no instruction, only presence. In one corner, he notices a small cloth slightly out of place. He bends down and adjusts it. The movement is simple, but it is done with the same care as every other task. When he finishes, he steps back and looks around the room. Everything is in order. The jars stand steady. The floor is clean. The air is still. He leaves the room as quietly as he entered. Back in the passage, he continues walking. The temple is large, yet familiar. Its paths are known to him in a way that requires no thought. His feet follow them naturally, guided by memory and repetition. He passes another priest carrying a basket of linen. Again, there is no spoken greeting, only a slight acknowledgement, a shared understanding that needs no words. The rhythm continues. The priest moves toward a smaller courtyard, tucked deeper within the temple. This space is more enclosed. The walls rise higher, allowing only a narrow view of the sky above. Sunlight enters in a soft beam, illuminating a central area where a shallow pool of water rests. The surface of the pool is smooth. It reflects the sky in a quiet, contained way. The priest approaches the edge. He kneels slowly. He dips his hands into the water, letting it move gently around his fingers. The coolness contrasts with the growing warmth of the day, bringing a sense of balance. He lifts the water to his face again. A simple act, repeated, necessary, not because he is unclean, but because the act itself holds meaning. He remains there for a moment. Then he rises. A small group of younger attendants enters the courtyard. They move carefully, carrying fresh bundles of linen and small containers. Their steps are quieter, more tentative, as if they are still learning the rhythm. The priest watches them briefly. There is no correction, no instruction, only observation. They place their items along a low stone bench, arranging them as they have been taught. Their movements are slower, less certain, but guided by the same intention. The older priest turns away. His presence is not meant to direct in this moment. It is enough that he is there. He leaves the courtyard and continues along another passage. The temple seems to unfold endlessly, each space leading to another, each room holding its own quiet purpose. He enters a long hall lined with columns. The ceiling above is high, though the light remains soft and filtered. Painted scenes cover the walls and pillars, images of offerings, of gods seated calmly, of rituals carried out in perfect order. The priest walks between the columns. His footsteps echo faintly, then fade. At the far end of the hall, a doorway opens toward another sacred space. Not as hidden as the inner shrine, but still important. He approaches it slowly. Inside, a smaller altar stands. Here, the rituals are simpler, yet still part of the greater pattern. Small offerings are placed here throughout the day, maintaining a steady flow of giving and care. The priest steps inside. He looks at the altar. A few items already rest upon it, perhaps placed earlier by another priest. He adjusts them slightly. A piece of bread moved just a little. A cup turned so it faces the correct direction. These small changes bring a sense of balance. He adds nothing new. His role in this moment is only to maintain what is already there. He steps back. The room remains quiet. The air feels still, as if holding the presence of many repeated acts over many years. The priest leaves the altar room and returns to the hall. The light has shifted again. It always does, slowly, without drawing attention to itself. He continues walking. There is no final destination, only the next step, the next task, the next quiet moment. And so the day moves forward, carried not by urgency, but by a steady and unchanging rhythm that flows gently, like the river beyond the temple walls. The hall remains cool as the priest walks through it. The stone beneath his feet holds the memory of the night. Even as the sun rises higher outside, the inner spaces of the temple keep their calm and steady temperature, untouched by the growing heat. His footsteps continue in a quiet rhythm. Each step is placed with care, not out of caution, but out of habit. The body has learned this pace over many years. There is no need to think about it. The columns beside him stand tall and unmoving. Their painted surfaces, though softened by time, still carry traces of color. Deep reds, faded blues, and touches of gold remain visible in the filtered light. The figures upon them seem to watch in silence, their forms unchanged as the days pass. The priest reaches the end of the hall. He turns into another passage, narrower this time. The ceiling lowers slightly, and the light dims. The air here feels more enclosed, holding a faint stillness that wraps gently around him. At the end of the passage, he arrives at a small chamber. This room is used for preparation. Inside, a low stone platform rests against one wall. On it are tools that are simple, yet important: small knives, wooden boards, and clay bowls. Nearby, bundles of herbs are tied neatly with thin strands of fiber, hanging in quiet rows. The scent here is subtle but present. Dry leaves, earth, a hint of something slightly bitter. The priest steps inside. Another attendant is already there, working quietly. He is cutting small pieces of plant material, placing them carefully into a bowl. His movements are steady, though slightly quicker than the priest's. Still, there is no sense of hurry. The priest moves closer. He does not interrupt. Instead, he observes. The attendant finishes his current task, then steps back slightly, allowing space. He lowers his head in a small gesture of acknowledgement. The priest returns the gesture. Then he reaches for one of the bundles of herbs. He unties it slowly. The dried leaves fall gently into his hand. They are light, almost weightless. He begins to separate them, placing them into a clay bowl with careful, even motions. The act is simple, yet it is done with the same quiet attention as the morning rituals. These herbs will be used later, some for incense, some for oils, some for offerings. Everything within the temple has a place, a time, and a purpose. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is overlooked. The two figures work side by side in silence. There is no need for speech. The sound of their work is soft. The faint brushing of leaves, the light tap of clay against stone, the quiet movement of hands. Time passes without measure. The light in the small chamber shifts slightly, becoming warmer as it filters through the narrow opening above. Dust moves slowly in the air, visible for a moment, then gone again. When the bowl is filled, the priest sets it aside. He ties the remaining herbs back into a bundle, securing them as they were before. He steps back and looks at the platform. Everything is arranged neatly. Nothing is left out of place. The attendant continues his work, moving on to another bundle. The priest turns and leaves the chamber, back into the passage, back into the steady rhythm of the temple. As he walks, he passes through a space where the scent of incense lingers more strongly. It drifts gently from a nearby room, carried along the corridor by a soft movement of air. He does not enter. He continues on. The temple is full of these overlapping moments, small acts happening at the same time, each one quiet, each one part of a larger whole. He emerges into another open space. This courtyard is different from the first. It is quieter, more enclosed, with fewer people moving through it. The walls rise higher, and the sunlight enters in narrower beams, creating patterns of light and shadow across the ground. In the center stands a simple stone bench. The priest walks toward it. He sits. The movement is slow and natural, as if it has been done the same way many times before. For a while, he does nothing. His hands rest lightly on his lap. His back remains straight, though not rigid. His breathing is calm. This is a moment of stillness within the day. Not a break, not a pause in duty, but a continuation of the same quiet rhythm. The temple does not demand constant movement. It allows for these spaces of rest, not sleep, not distraction, just stillness. The sounds around him are soft. A distant footstep, the faint rustle of fabric, a bird calling somewhere beyond the walls. The air is warm now, though still gentle. It settles around him without weight. After some time, he rises. There is no signal, only a quiet sense that the moment has come to move again. He steps away from the bench and continues across the courtyard. At the far side, a doorway leads into another part of the temple complex. He passes through it. The space beyond is larger, more open. Here, a few more priests are gathered, each engaged in their own quiet tasks. Some arrange offerings. Others carry small vessels from one place to another. Their movements do not disturb the calm. They are part of it. The priest joins them. He approaches a long table where several items are laid out. Small loaves of bread, bowls of fruit, and cups filled with liquid. He begins to adjust them, turning one slightly, moving another closer, ensuring that everything is balanced. This is preparation for later offerings. Nothing is left to chance. Everything follows a pattern. As he works, the light continues to change. The sun climbs higher. The shadows grow shorter. The warmth deepens, though it never becomes overwhelming within the thick walls of the temple. The priest completes his task. He steps back. Again, he observes. Everything is in place. He lowers his head slightly. Then he turns away. The day continues. Slowly, steadily, without interruption. And the rhythm carries on, just as it always has. The warmth of the day settles gently over the temple. It does not arrive all at once. It builds slowly, almost unnoticed as the sun rises higher in the sky. The stone walls hold it softly, never allowing it to become harsh or overwhelming. The priest moves through the open space with the same quiet steadiness. Around him, the others continue their work. No one speaks loudly. No one rushes. Each movement is part of a shared rhythm that does not need to be explained. He walks along the edge of the long table one last time. His eyes pass over the offerings again. Bread, fruit, small cups placed with care. Everything remains as it should be. Nothing is shifted. Satisfied, he steps away. He turns toward a shaded walkway that runs along the inner wall of the temple. The path is narrow but clear, worn smooth by many footsteps over many years. As he walks, the light changes again. Here, it comes in fragments, broken by the tall walls and columns. Small patches of sunlight fall across the ground, warm against the cooler stone. He passes through them one by one, his shadows stretching and shortening as he moves. The air carries a mix of scents now. The faint sweetness of incense, the dryness of stone, a trace of herbs from the preparation room. All of it blends into something quiet and familiar. He reaches another doorway and pauses briefly before entering. Inside, the chamber is darker. The light is softer here, filtered through a high opening that allows only a narrow beam to enter. It falls across the center of the room, illuminating a simple space. This is a place of storage for sacred items. Not everyday tools, but objects used only at certain times. The priest steps inside. His eyes adjust slowly to the dimness. Along the walls are small shelves carved directly into the stone. Upon them rest carefully wrapped objects, bundles of linen, sealed containers, and small boxes made of wood. Each one is placed with intention. Each one has a purpose known to those who serve here. He walks toward one of the shelves. He reaches out and gently touches a small wooden box. He does not open it. He only checks its position, ensuring it sits exactly as it should. Then he moves to another shelf. A bundle of linen rests there, tied with a thin cord. He adjusts the knot slightly, tightening it just enough. These are small acts, quiet, unnoticed by most, but within the temple, they matter. The priest continues along the wall, checking each item in turn. His movements are slow, almost meditative. There's no need to hurry. The day is long. There is time for everything. When he finishes, he steps back and looks across the room. Nothing stands out. Nothing calls for attention. That is how it should be. He leaves the chamber as quietly as he entered. Back in the walkway, the light feels brighter. The contrast between shadow and sun is soft but clear. His eyes adjust once more, returning to the gentle glow of the day. He continues walking. The temple seems endless, yet familiar. Each passage leads to another space, each space holding its own quiet purpose. He passes a group of younger attendants again. They carry small baskets filled with fresh linen, their steps careful and measured. One of them pauses briefly as the priest approaches, stepping slightly aside. The priest moves past without interruption. There is no need for direction. Each person knows their place within the rhythm. He enters another courtyard. This one is more open than the others. The sky above is wide and bright, the sun now higher, casting a steady light across the ground. The air here feels warmer, though still softened by a light breeze that moves gently through the space. In the center stand a low stone platform. Upon it rests a shallow bowl filled with water. The surface reflects the sky, broken only by the faint movement of air. The priest approaches. He does not kneel this time. Instead, he stands beside the bowl and looks into it. The reflection is calm. The sky, the light, and his own faint outline merge together in the water. He watches for a moment. Then he reaches down and dips his fingers lightly into the surface. The water shifts. Small ripples move outward, soft and slow, until they fade again into stillness. He lifts his hand and lets the drops fall back. A simple motion, quiet, repeating the same sense of calm that fills the temple. Behind him, the faint sound of footsteps approaches. Another priest joins him at the platform. They stand side by side for a moment, both looking into the water. Neither speaks. There is nothing to say. After a short time, the second priest moves away, continuing on his own path. The first remains for a moment longer. Then he turns. The day continues to move forward. The sun climbs higher. The light grows stronger, though never harsh within these walls. The priest walks toward another passage. This one leads toward a part of the temple where the midday rituals will soon take place. There is no urgency in his steps, only a quiet awareness. The rhythm of the day is guiding him, just as it always does. He passes through a final doorway and enters a large, open hall. The space is calm, waiting. The preparations made earlier are now complete. The offerings are in place. The air carries a faint trace of incense. Everything is ready. The priest moves to his place. He stands quietly, waiting, not for a signal, but for the natural flow of time to bring the next moment forward. The temple rests in this gentle pause, between morning and midday, between one ritual and the next. And in this stillness, The calm continues, unbroken, as the day slowly unfolds. The hall holds a quiet expectation. It is not tension. It is not urgency. It is simply a gentle awareness that the day is moving forward and that another moment of care is approaching. The priest stands in his place. His posture is calm, balanced, and steady. His hands rest lightly at his sides. His gaze is soft, neither fixed nor wandering too far. He is present, but without strain. Around him, the space remains still. The tall columns rise in a shadow above, their painted surfaces catching small pieces of light. The floor beneath him is smooth, worn by time and quiet movement. Other priests begin to gather. They enter slowly, one by one, each taking a position within the hall. Their steps are soft. Their movements are familiar. No one needs guidance. No one speaks. They simply arrive. Each knows where to stand. Each knows what will come next. The air shifts slightly as more people enter the space. Not in sound, but in presence. A shared stillness settles among them, deep and steady. The priest lowers his head slightly. It is a small movement, almost unnoticeable. Then he lifts it again. The moment has come. Without any sudden change, the ritual begins. One of the priests steps forward. He carries a small vessel in his hands. The surface of the vessel is smooth, shaped with care, its form simple and balanced. He places it gently upon the stone surface at the center of the hall. Another priest follows, bringing a small bundle of incense. The scent begins to rise again, faint at first, then slowly deepening as the warmth of the room draws it upward. The priest who has been standing quietly now moves. His steps are slow and even. He approaches the center, joining the others. Together, they begin the midday offering. There are no loud words, only soft voices, low and steady, repeating phrases that have been spoken for generations. The sounds blend together, forming a gentle rhythm that fills the space without disturbing its calm. The priest lifts a piece of bread. He holds it for a moment, as if acknowledging its presence. Then he places it carefully among the offerings. Each movement follows the same pattern. Lift, pause, place. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is changed. The repetition itself brings a sense of peace. The scent of incense grows warmer. It drifts upward, then spreads outward, filling the hall with a quiet fragrance that lingers in the air. Light enters from high openings above. It falls in soft beams, touching the floor, the columns, the faces of the priests. Dust moves gently within the light, turning slowly, then settling again. The world outside continues its movement. The sun is now high in the sky. The village is fully awake. But inside the temple, time remains soft and unbroken. The priest continues his part of the ritual. He lifts a small cup. The liquid inside remains still. He tilts it slightly, offering it forward. Then he places it down with care. His hands move with quiet certainty. There is no hesitation, no distraction, only the steady continuation of what has always been done. The voices of the priests rise and fall gently. They do not grow louder. They do not fade completely. They remain in a narrow space, a soft layer of sound that rests within the hall. After some time, the movement's slow. The final offerings are placed. The last words are spoken. And then, gradually, the ritual comes to a close. Not with a clear ending, but with a gentle return to stillness. The priests step back, one by one, each returning to his place. The hall becomes quiet again. The scent of incense remains. The light continues to fall in the same soft patterns. The priest stands still for a moment longer. Then he lowers his head once more. A simple gesture, a quiet acknowledgement. After a short time, he turns and begins to walk away. The others do the same. There is no signal to leave, only a shared understanding. The rhythm continues. He moves through the hall and into the passage beyond. The air feels slightly cooler again as he steps into the shade. The sounds of the ritual fade behind him, replaced once more by the soft silence of the temple corridors. He walks slowly. There is no change in his pace, no sense of completion or relief. Only the next step, the next moment, the next quiet task waiting somewhere within the wide and steady space of the temple. As he moves, the sunlight outside begins to soften slightly, not fading but shifting. The brightness becomes more even, less sharp. The day has reached its middle, and now, just as gently as it began, it continues forward, unhurried, unbroken, and calm. The stillness. Inside, another priest carefully gathers the remains of the offering. The movements are slow, respectful. Nothing is discarded carelessly. Even what has already been given is treated with care. The priest does not stop. He continues along the passage. Soon, the space opens into another courtyard. This one is quieter than the others. Fewer footsteps cross its surface. The walls stand higher, enclosing the space in a deeper sense of calm. The sky above appears as a narrow band of pale blue, softened by the height of the stone around it. A small tree grows near one corner. Its leaves are still, barely touched by the light breeze that moves above the walls. Beneath it, the ground holds a patch of shadow that remains cool even as the day warms. The priest walks toward this shaded area. He pauses there. For a moment, he stands beneath the tree. The leaves create a soft pattern of light and shadow across his robe. The air feels slightly different here, cooler, quieter, as if held gently in place. He lowers himself to sit once more. The stone beneath him is cool. His hands rest lightly in his lap. This is another moment of stillness. Not separate from his duties, but woven into them. The temple allows for these quiet spaces. Moments where nothing needs to be arranged, carried, or spoken. Only observed, only experienced. The sounds around him are faint. A distant movement of footsteps. The soft rustle of linen. A bird calling briefly from somewhere beyond the wall. The tree above him remains still. Its leaves hold their place, unmoving, as if resting along with him. Time passes slowly. There is no need to count it. The sun continues its path across the sky, though here, within the enclosed space, its movement is felt more than seen. The light shifts slightly. The shadow beneath the tree grows shorter. The warmth in the air deepens, though it never becomes overwhelming. After some time, the priest opens his eyes fully, if they had softened at all. He rises. The motion is smooth and unhurried. He steps away from a shade and returns to the open part of the courtyard. From here, another passage leads toward a different section of the temple. He follows it. The corridor curves gently, guiding him through a series of connected spaces. Each one holds its own quiet purpose, its own steady rhythm. He passes a room where water is stored in large clay jars. The surfaces of the jars are cool to the touch, their shapes simple and strong. A faint scent of damp earth lingers in the air. An attendant carefully fills a smaller vessel from one of the jars. The water flows slowly, making a soft, steady sound. The priest watches for a moment, then continues on. Further along, he enters a long chamber lined with low tables. Here, linen cloths are being folded. Several attendants sit or stand quietly, their hands moving in slow, practiced motions. Each fold is precise. Each piece of fabric is smoothed carefully before being set aside. The room is calm. The only sound is the soft movement of cloth. The priest walks along the edge of the chamber. He pauses beside one of the tables. He picks up a piece of linen. He runs his hand lightly across its surface, feeling its smoothness. Then he folds it once more, adjusting the edges so they align perfectly. He sets it back down. The act is simple, yet it is done with the same quiet care as every other task. The attendants continue their work. Their movements remain steady, unaffected by his presence. The rhythm continues. The priest leaves the chamber. He returns to the passage. The temple stretches on, room after room, space after space, each one part of a larger whole that never feels hurried or chaotic. He moves toward an area where the light grows stronger again. The passage opens into a wide courtyard. This one is more active. Several priests and attendants move through it, carrying small items, arranging objects, preparing for the later part of the day. Even here, the calm remains. No one rushes. No voices rise above a gentle level. The priest steps into the space. He walks along its edge, observing the quiet activity. A group of attendants carefully arranges a set of vessels near a low platform. Another carries a bundle of fresh herbs. Someone else adjusts the position of a small statue placed along the wall. Each action is slow, intentional, part of the same steady rhythm. The priest approaches a table where a few items have been set aside. He begins to arrange them. A bowl moves slightly, a cloth smoothed flat, a vessel turned so it faces the correct direction. These small adjustments bring a sense of balance. Nothing dramatic changes, yet everything feels more aligned. He steps back. Again, he observes. The space feels calm, complete. He lowers his head slightly. Then he turns away. The afternoon has begun to settle in. The light is softer now, still bright, but less sharp than before. The shadows stretch just a little longer. The warmth of the day begins its slow, gradual descent, and the priest continues on his path. moving gently, without urgency, following the same quiet rhythm that carries him through each moment, just as it always has. The afternoon light settles gently over the temple. It is no longer the bright, rising light of the morning, nor the still height of midday. It has softened. It moves more slowly now, stretching across the stone surfaces in long, quiet lines. The priest walks along the courtyard's edge. His shadow follows beside him, slightly longer than before. It shifts with each step, changing shape without drawing attention to itself. The air feels warmer but calmer. The small breeze that passed through earlier has grown lighter. It moves only now and then, brushing softly against the linen of his robe. He moves toward another shaded passage. The transition from light to shadow is gradual. The brightness fades gently as he steps beneath the stone covering. The air cools slightly, carrying a faint stillness with it. Inside, the temple returns to its quieter tone. The sounds of the courtyard soften behind him. Ahead, the corridor stretches forward, lined with smooth walls that hold the memory of many quiet days. He walks slowly. There is no change in his pace. There never is, as he moves deeper into the temple. He approaches a chamber used for preparing oils and scented mixtures. The doorway is open. Inside, a soft, layered fragrance fills the air. Not strong, not overwhelming, just present. The scent of crushed herbs mixed with oil and something slightly sweet beneath it. The priest enters. Inside, a low stone table holds several small bowls. Each one contains a different mixture, some pale, some darker, each prepared with care. An attendant stands nearby, gently stirring one of the bowls with a small wooden stick. The movement is slow, circular, steady. The priest approaches. He looks at the bowls one by one. He does not touch them at first. He simply observes. The surface of each mixture reflects the light differently. Some are smooth and still. Others hold a slight movement from recent stirring. After a moment, he reaches out. He takes a small amount of one mixture between his fingers. He rubs it gently, feeling its texture. Then he lifts it slightly closer, sensing its scent. He does not hurry this act. He allows the moment to unfold. Then he sets his hand down and nods slightly. The attendant continues stirring, unchanged. The priest moves to another bowl. He adjusts its position slightly, aligning it more carefully on the table. Then he steps back. The room remains quiet. The scent lingers. The light shifts slowly across the stone surface. He leaves the chamber, back into the passage. The rhythm continues. He walks without thinking about where he will go next. His body already knows. The path unfolds naturally. He enters another room. This one is nearly empty. Only a single low platform stands against the wall, and a small window above lets in a narrow beam of light. Dust drifts slowly through that beam, moving in soft, silent patterns. The priest steps inside. He pauses. There is nothing to adjust, nothing to prepare. The space exists as it is. He stands there for a moment, still, breathing slowly. The quiet here feels deeper, more contained. almost as if the room itself is holding its breath. After a short time, he turns and leaves. The temple continues, endless yet familiar. He returns to a wider corridor. Here, a few more attendants move past him, carrying small items from one place to another. Their footsteps are soft, their movements careful. No one disturbs the calm. He continues walking. The light grows slightly warmer again as he approaches another open space. This courtyard is touched by the afternoon sun. The shadows stretch longer now, reaching across the ground in soft, uneven shapes. The priest steps into the light. He pauses. For a moment, he lifts his face slightly, feeling the warmth of the sun. It is gentler now, less direct. The air feels softer, more settled. He lowers his gaze again. Around him, a few others move quietly. One arranges small vessels along a wall. Another carries a bundle of reeds. Each action continues the steady flow of the day. The priest walks toward a low platform at the center. He checks the items placed there earlier. A bowl, a cloth, a small container. Everything remains in place. Still, he adjusts them slightly. A small turn, a gentle shift. The balance is restored. He steps back. The courtyard feels complete again. The sun continues its slow movement. The sky begins to soften in color, though the day is not yet near its end. The priest turns once more. He walks toward another passage. The temple stretches onward, room after room, corridor after corridor, each space holding its own quiet purpose. And he continues, unhurried, unchanging, carried gently forward by the same calm rhythm that has guided him since before the sun rose. The temple grows quieter as the afternoon deepens, not in sound, but in feeling. The movement of the day begins to slow in a way that is almost unnoticeable. Tasks continue. Footsteps still pass through the corridors, and small rituals are still carried out. Yet everything feels slightly softer now, as if the world itself is resting into a calmer shape. The priest moves through a long shaded passage. The walls here are cooler again, holding onto the memory of earlier shade. Light enters only in thin lines from above, creating narrow paths of brightness that shift slowly as he walks. His steps remain steady, even, familiar. He passes a small alcove where another priest sits quietly, reviewing a scroll. The scroll rests on his lap, partially unrolled. His eyes move slowly across its surface. The seated priest does not look up. The walking priest does not stop. They both continue in their separate rhythms, sharing the same space without disturbing one another. The corridor bends gently. Ahead, the passage opens into a quiet inner chamber used for rest and preparation. This room is simpler than the others. No tall columns, no painted walls, only smooth stone surfaces and a low bench along one side. The priest enters. He pauses. The air here is still, not empty, but settled. He walks toward the bench and sits. This is not sleep. Not yet. It is a pause within the larger flow of the day. A place where movement softens into stillness. His hands rest on his knees. His back remains straight but relaxed. He does not close his eyes fully. Instead, he allows them to soften, taking in the quiet space around him without focus. Time passes in a gentle way, unmeasured, unmarked. The sound of distant movement from the temple drifts faintly into the room, then fades again. The priest breathes slowly, in, out. There is nothing urgent in the breath, nothing forced, just a steady rhythm, like the river outside the temple walls. After some time, he shifts slightly. The moment of rest is ending, not because it is interrupted, but because it naturally reaches its conclusion. He stands. The movement is smooth and unhurried. He adjusts his robe. Then he steps away from the bench. The chamber remains behind him, unchanged. He returns to the corridor. The light here feels slightly different now. The afternoon is moving closer towards later stage. The shadows are longer. The warmth is softer. He continues walking. Soon, he reaches a larger space where preparations for the evening cycle begin. The room is active, though still quiet. Several priests are present. Some arrange oil lamps along a stone ledge. Others prepare small bowls of water and clean cloths. The air carries a faint scent of oil and wax. The priest joins them. He approaches the line of lamps. Each one is simple in form, made of clay or metal, shaped to hold a small flame. He checks them one by one, ensuring they are clean, ensuring the oil is sufficient, ensuring the wicks are properly placed. His hands move with care. Each lamp is adjusted with a small, precise motion. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is overlooked. The others continue their tasks beside him. Their presence is steady and quiet. The room gradually takes on a sense of readiness, not for action, but for the gentle transition that will come with evening. The priest finishes his section of lamps. He steps back, observes. Everything is in order. The tools of light are prepared, waiting for their time. He turns and leaves the room. The corridor outside feels slightly dimmer now. The sun has begun its descent. Not quickly, not dramatically, just slowly, as it always does. He walks toward another courtyard. This one is partially shaded already. The temple walls block much of the direct light, allowing only soft reflections to reach the ground. The air is cooler here, more comfortable, more still. A few attendants move quietly through the space, carrying small items used for evening preparation. Their movements are slow and careful. The priest walks along the edge of the courtyard. He stops briefly near a low basin of water. He looks into it. The surface reflects the sky, now beginning to shift in tone. Slightly warmer colors, slightly deeper shades. He dips his hand into the water, just as before, just as always. The ripples spread gently outward, then fade. He withdraws his hand. The water becomes still again. He stands for a moment longer, then turns away. The day continues its slow descent toward evening, and the temple, steady and unchanged, moves with it. The priest follows the familiar paths once more, stepping through shadow and light, through quiet rooms and open courtyards, as the rhythm of the day carries him forward without pause. The light begins to change in a way that feels almost imperceptible at first. It is not sudden, It does not announce itself. It simply softens, as if the sky above the temple is slowly lowering its voice. The priest moves through a narrower corridor. The stone here holds the day's warmth in a gentler way now. It is no longer bright or sharp. It feels subdued, as if the temple is beginning to settle into the final stretch of its long, quiet rhythm. His footsteps echo faintly, then fade. Each step blends into the next. There is no urgency in his movement. There never has been. He passes a small doorway where another priest stands briefly, holding a lantern that has not yet been lit. The glass covering is clean, the wick inside still dark. They exchange no words, only a slight, shared acknowledgement, the unspoken understanding that evening is approaching. The priest continues forward. The corridor opens into a wider space where the ceiling rises higher again. Here, the temple feels more open, more connected to the fading light outside. A soft breeze moves through a narrow opening above. It carries with it the scent of the river. Cooler now, slightly more distinct. The priest pauses near the center of the hall. He looks upward for a moment. The sky is no longer bright. It holds a deeper tone, shifting slowly toward the colors of late day. The shadows in the hall stretch longer. They reach farther across the stone floor, touching the base of the columns before slowly pulling away again. He lowers his gaze and continues. Nearby, a group of attendants begins lighting the first lamps. One flame catches, then another. Each small spark grows into a steady glow. The light is soft, warm, contained. It does not push back the darkness. It simply exists within it, gently shaping the space around it. The priest watches briefly, then moves closer. He takes one of the lamps. Carefully, he checks the oil once more. Then he adjusts the wick. The flame steadies. He places the lamp back in its position along the wall. Another is lit beside it, then another. Slowly, the hall begins to shift in atmosphere, not becoming bright again, but becoming alive in a different way. A quieter kind of light, a more contained presence. The priest continues this work with the others, moving along the line, lighting, adjusting, ensuring each flame is steady. The process is repetitive, calm, almost meditative. Each lamp becomes part of the growing evening rhythm. As they progress, the hall transforms subtly. The stone walls now hold both shadow and light together. The painted figures along the columns appear softer, their edges less defined in the dimming day. The air feels cooler again. The priest finishes his section of lamps. He steps back, observes. The light now fills the hall in scattered points. Not overwhelming, just present, enough to guide the next part of the day. He turns and walks toward another passage. This one leads deeper into the temple's inner sections again. The space becomes quieter as he moves away from the lamplit hall. The sound of other priests working fades behind him. Only the soft rhythm of his own footsteps remains. He enters a chamber where preparations for the final evening offerings are beginning. This room feels different, more focused, more contained. A long stone platform runs through the center. On it, small items are being arranged with care: bowls, cloths, and simple offerings prepared earlier in the day. The priest joins the work. He begins by adjusting the placement of the items. A bowl shifted slightly, a cloth smoothed, a vessel turned so its opening faces correctly. Each movement is precise, each action familiar. The others in the room continue alongside him. No one speaks. There is no need. The rhythm is shared. The light in the chamber is now a mix of fading daylight and early lamp glow. Soft shadows move slowly across the stone surface. The priest finishes arranging his section. He steps back. The platform now feels balanced. Ready. Not for completion, but for continuation. Because the temple does not end its day quickly. It transitions, slowly, gently, like the movement of the sun itself. He leaves the chamber, back into the corridor. The evening is now clearly approaching. The air outside the passages is cooler still. The sky has deepened further, and the temple begins to prepare for its final cycle of the day. The priest continues walking, not toward an ending, but toward the next quiet step in the long and steady unfolding of the evening. The temple now feels different in a way that cannot be seen directly, only felt. The evening has not fully arrived, but its presence is already there, soft, quiet, and spreading through every corridor like a gentle shadow that does not disturb anything it touches. The priest moves deeper into the inner corridors. The light here is dimmer now. The lamps that were lit earlier in the outer halls do not reach this far. Instead, the space relies on faint reflections that drift in from distant openings, carrying just enough brightness to guide the way. His steps remain steady, measured, familiar. He passes another priest carrying a small tray of oil. The liquid inside moves slightly with each step, catching what little light remains and holding it for a moment before releasing it again. They do not speak. They never do in passing. Only a small pause in movement, a shared awareness, and then they continue on their separate paths. The priest turns into a narrow passage that leads toward a more secluded section of the temple. Here, the walls are closer. The air feels stiller. The sounds of movement from other parts of the temple fade almost completely. He reaches a small chamber. Inside, the space is simple. A low platform rests against one wall. On it sits a single oil lamp that has not yet been lit. This is part of the evening preparation. The final light before the deeper night rituals begin. The priest approaches it. He kneels slowly beside the platform. His movements are careful, not because the act is difficult, but because it carries a certain quiet weight. He takes the lamp in his hands. It is cool. Still, he inspects it gently, as if confirming its readiness. Then he reaches for the oil. He pours a small amount into the lamp. The sound is faint, almost lost in the stillness of the room. He sets the oil aside. Then he prepares the wick, straightening it, ensuring it is properly placed. Each step is performed without hesitation, without rush. When he is ready, he strikes a small spark. A soft glow appears, then grows. The flame takes shape slowly, as if waking up from sleep. It steadies, becomes calm. The chamber is now softly lit. The light is warm but contained. It does not fill the room completely. Instead, it rests within it, creating a gentle circle of illumination surrounded by shadow. The priest watches the flame for a moment. Not long, just enough to ensure it is stable. Then he stands. He leaves the lamp where it is. It will remain here, part of the evening cycle. He steps back into the corridor. The difference between lit and unlit space is now more noticeable. Behind him, the small chamber holds a steady glow. Ahead, the passage remains dim. He moves forward. The temple continues its slow transformation. Now, more lamps are being lit in distant rooms. Their light does not reach everywhere at once. Instead, it spreads gradually like a quiet wave moving through the structure. The priest enters another hall. Here, the evening preparations are more advanced, like a quiet wave moving through the structure. The priest enters another hall. Here, the evening preparations are more advanced. Multiple lamps line the walls now. Their flames are steady, creating pools of warm light along the stone. The shadows between them are soft and deep. He walks through this space. His figure passes through alternating bands of light and darkness. Each step changes his outline slightly as he moves. Around him, other priests continue their work. Some adjust lamps. Others carry small containers of oil. Some prepare the final offerings of the day. All movements remain slow. All actions remain steady. The priest approaches a central area where a larger arrangement is being prepared. A final offering platform. It is simple in design. A raised stone surface with carefully placed items. He joins the others. Together, they adjust the arrangement. Each item is placed with attention. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is forgotten. The light from surrounding lamps reflects softly on the stone surface, creating a calm, glowing atmosphere. The priest steps back when his part is complete. He observes. Everything is in order. The space feels balanced, ready for the final phase of the evening ritual. He lowers his head slightly, then turns away. The hall behind him is now fully illuminated by the lamps. The temple no longer belongs to the daylight. It belongs to the soft, steady glow of evening light. He walks back through the corridors. Each passage now carries its own small sources of flame. The entire structure feels warmer, though the outside world is growing cooler. The contrast is gentle, almost comforting. He continues forward, not stopping, not rushing, only moving with the rhythm that has guided him since the first light of morning. And now, as the evening settles deeper over the temple, that rhythm grows even quieter, preparing for the final sacred moments of the day. The temple is now wrapped in evening light. Not darkness yet, but something in between, where the day is no longer strong and the night has not fully arrived. The lamps carry most of the presence now, their soft flames stretching gently across stone walls and quiet corridors. The priest moves through this changing space. Each passage he enters feels slightly different than before. The air is cooler. The shadows are deeper. The light from the lamps creates a steady rhythm of glow and dimness as he walks past them. His pace does not change. It never does. The temple, even now, does not feel like it is ending the day. It feels like it is shifting into another form of the same steady rhythm. He passes a group of attendants carefully carrying covered vessels. The contents are not visible, but their movements suggest care. Each step is measured. Each turn is slow. No one speaks. The silence is not empty. It is full of awareness. The priest continues into a wider corridor where the ceiling rises again. Here, the lamps are spaced farther apart, creating long stretches of shadow between the light. The stone beneath his feet feels slightly cooler now. The warmth of the day has fully faded from these deeper parts of the temple. Ahead, the corridor opens into the final preparation hall for the evening ritual. This space feels more focused than the others. Not louder, not brighter, but more centered. The lamps here are arranged in a careful pattern along the walls and near the central platform. Their light forms a soft boundary around the sacred space. Inside this hall, several priests are already gathered. Each stands in a familiar position, each waiting for the final sequence of the day. The priest steps into the hall. He takes his place without hesitation. There is no instruction needed. The alignment has been practiced so many times that it now lives in memory more than thought. A long silence settles over the group. The lamps flicker gently. The air feels still. The final evening ritual begins slowly. One priest moves first, then another. The actions are deliberate, quiet, and precise. Small offerings are placed again, not as repetition, but as completion. A final tending of what has been maintained throughout the day. The priest joins in. He steps forward and lifts a small item from the table. He holds it for a moment, then places it carefully into its position. His hands remain steady. The others continue around him. Together, they form a sequence of movement that feels almost like breathing, expanding and returning, placing and pausing, each action flowing into the next without interruption. The sound in the room is minimal. Only the faint movement of cloth, the soft touch of objects against stone, the quiet breath of many people sharing the same calm space. The lamps around them burn steadily now. Their flames are stronger, having been tended carefully throughout the afternoon. The light they cast is warm and consistent. It gathers around the central platform, making the sacred space feel gently enclosed. The priest steps back after completing his part. He returns to stillness. The ritual continues without him needing to direct it further. He watches only briefly, then lowers his gaze. Outside this hall, the temple is now fully in its evening state. Every corridor holds light. Every chamber carries a softened shadow. The boundary between inside and outside feels more distant now, as if the temple has separated itself gently from the rest of the world. Time feels slower here, not stopped, just softened. The final steps of the ritual begin to take shape. The last offerings are placed. The final words are spoken in low, steady voices. They blend together into a single flow of sound that fills the hall without rising too high. The priest remains still. His presence is part of the moment, not separate from it. The sequence continues, then gradually slows. until it reaches its natural quiet end. No sharp conclusion, just a gentle easing back into silence. The priests step back in unison, one by one, each returning to their position along the edges of the hall. The central space remains lit. The offerings remain in place. The ritual is complete, yet its presence still lingers softly in the air. The priest stands quietly. He does not move immediately. He allows the stillness to settle fully. The lamps continue to burn, their light steady, their warmth calm. After a moment, he turns and begins to walk away. The others follow their own paths. The hall slowly empties, though the light remains. The corridors outside feel even quieter now, even more gentle. The temple has fully entered its evening rhythm, and as the priest moves through it, he carries that same calm with him, step by step, into the deeper stillness of the night that is slowly approaching. The temple now, the air grows slightly cooler as he moves deeper into the inner sections of the temple. The stone walls here feel older, more still, as if they have held centuries of quiet evenings just like this one. He enters a narrow passage that leads toward a final inner chamber. This space is not used for large rituals. It is quieter, more private, a place where the final acts of the day are completed before full night arrives. The chamber is softly lit by a few carefully placed lamps. Their light does not spread far. Instead, it gathers gently around the center of the room. The priest steps inside. He pauses at the threshold for a brief moment, then enters fully. Inside, a small basin of water rests on a low stand. The surface is still, reflecting the soft glow of nearby lamps. He approaches it slowly. He does not rush this moment. There is a sense of closure in the air, though nothing has ended abruptly. Everything here feels like it is gently coming to rest. He dips his hands into the water. The coolness is subtle now, deeper in contrast to the warmth of the lamps. He brings the water to his face. Slow, familiar. The same gesture he has performed since the beginning of the day, though now it feels quieter, as if it belongs to the closing of something larger. He lowers his hands. Water drips back into the basin, forming small ripples that spread outward and fade. He remains still for a moment, then turns slightly. Behind him, the chamber holds a soft silence. The lamps flicker gently. The shadows remain calm. He moves toward a small stone shelf along the wall. On it rests a folded piece of linen in a simple container. He takes the linen, carefully wipes his hands, then folds it again and returns it to its place. Each movement is slow, deliberate, final in its own quiet way. He steps back from the shelf. The room feels complete, not finished, but settled. He turns and leaves the chamber. The corridor outside is even quieter now. Most movement within the temple has slowed. The earlier rhythms of preparation and ritual have given way to stillness. Only the lamps remain active, holding the temple gently in light. He walks through the passage, returning toward the central corridors. The air feels cooler still. The day is now fully behind him, and the night is beginning to take shape beyond the temple walls. As he moves, he passes a final open courtyard. The sky above is darker now, a deep, soft blue that slowly transitions toward night. The first faint stars begin to appear, barely visible through the fading light. The courtyard is almost empty. Only a few lamps remain lit around its edges. Their glow is soft and steady. The priest steps into the open space. He pauses, just for a moment. He looks upward. The sky continues to shift gently. The last light of day is fading now, not disappearing quickly, but dissolving slowly into the growing night. He lowers his gaze again. There is no need to remain here longer. He turns and walks toward the final corridor that leads back into the inner resting areas of the temple. The structure feels even more peaceful now. Every sound is reduced, every movement softened. The priest continues forward. The rhythm of the day is now nearly complete, not ending sharply, but settling into rest. And as he moves deeper into the quiet heart of the temple, the evening becomes night with the same gentle certainty that has guided every moment before it. The temple is now fully held by night, not a sudden night, but one that has arrived slowly enough that no one inside seems to notice the exact moment it became complete. It simply is night now, resting over stone, corridors, and courtyards like a soft covering that does not press down, only surrounds. The priest walks through the final inner corridor. The lamps here are fewer, but steady. Their light is enough to guide the way without effort. The walls feel closer in the quiet of night, though they have not moved at all. Everything simply feels more contained, more inward. He passes a resting alcove where a few priests have already settled for the night. Some sit quietly against the walls. Others lie on simple mats placed on the stone floor. Their breathing is slow, even and calm. No one speaks. The temple at night does not need speech, only presence. The priest continues walking. His movements are no longer tied to task or ritual. They are now part of transition, the final settling of the day into rest. He reaches a familiar doorway. Beyond it lies a small resting chamber reserved for those who serve the temple. Inside, the space is simple. Soft mats laid neatly along the floor. A few folded linens placed at the edges. A single lamp burning in the corner, its flame low and steady. He enters without sound. He pauses near the entrance. The room feels different from the rest of the temple. Not more important, not less, just quieter in a deeper way. A place where movement no longer defines the rhythm. He steps forward and lowers himself onto one of the mats. Slowly, carefully. The motion is no different from any other act of his day. It carries the same steadiness, the same awareness. He sits for a moment. His hands rest gently in his lap. The lamp in the corner casts a soft glow across the room. Shadows stretch lightly along the walls, then settle again. There is no sense of urgency left in the air, only stillness. The priest remains seated. His breathing is calm. Even, the weight of the day is not felt as burden, but as completion. A cycle that has moved through its many stages and now rests at its natural end. Outside the room, the temple continues its quiet night rhythm. A few distant footsteps pass through corridors, soft and unhurried. The sound of a door closing gently echoes and fades. Then silence returns. Inside the chamber, the priest slowly leans back, not into sleep immediately, but into rest. A soft transition between wakefulness and the quiet pull of night. The lamp's flame flickers slightly, then steadies again. Time feels less defined here. There are no tasks waiting, no rituals beginning. Only the gentle presence of the night surrounding the temple and all within it. The priest's eyes soften. The room remains still. The light remains low. The world outside continues its slow movement under the stars. But here, within these walls, everything has already come to rest. He breathes once more, slowly, then again. And the rhythm that carried him through the entire day now fades gently into silence. Not ending sharply, not breaking, just dissolving into calm. The temple sleeps, and the night continues quietly beyond it, steady and endless, holding everything in a soft and peaceful stillness. The night inside the temple does not feel empty. It feels full in a quieter way, as if every stone, every corridor, every lamp still holds the memory of the day that has just passed through it. The priest rests in the small chamber. The mat beneath him is simple, thin, and familiar. It carries the weight of many nights before this one. His body settles slowly, not because he is exhausted, but because the rhythm of the day has finally allowed stillness to fully arrive. The lamp in the corner continues to burn. Its flame is smaller now, lowered for the night, yet still steady enough to keep the space gently visible. Shadows move softly along the walls, not shifting quickly, but breathing in their own quiet rhythm. The priest remains awake for a time, not thinking in urgency, not recalling events in detail, only allowing the day to fade in his mind the same way it has faded in the world outside. Morning rituals, midday offerings, evening lamps. Each part passes through him like distant reflections on water. Unhurried, soft, he adjusts his position slightly. The movement is small, almost unnoticeable. His hands rest more comfortably now at his side. The room remains unchanged. Still, calm. Time feels less structured here. There is no beginning pressing forward, no end waiting ahead. Only the present moment, stretching gently without resistance. Outside the chamber, the temple continues its night rhythm. A soft step in a distant corridor, a faint shift of fabric, a door being closed carefully. Each sound appears briefly, then dissolves back into silence. The priest's breathing slows further. The lamp's glow reflects faintly on the stone floor near him, forming a small circle of light that does not demand attention. It simply exists, holding the space. As the night deepens, the air becomes even cooler. The temple walls release the last warmth of the day, returning fully to their quiet, steady state. The priest's eyes grow heavier, not from effort, but from release. There is no struggle in this transition, only a gradual softening. The boundary between wakefulness and sleep becomes less distinct. Thoughts do not disappear suddenly. They thin, like mist gently lifting from a river at dawn. Inside the chamber, everything remains unchanged. The lamp continues its steady glow. The mat remains still beneath him. The walls hold their quiet presence. And the priest, lying in that small space within the larger temple, becomes part of the same stillness. Outside, the night sky stretches over the temple complex. Stars remain steady above. The Nile continues its slow movement beyond the walls, unseen but constant. The world does not stop. It simply rests. The temple, too, rests in its own way, holding the echoes of the day within its corridors. The priest finally closes his eyes, not as an ending, but as a continuation of the same calm rhythm that has guided every part of his day. Breath slows, light remains steady, and everything becomes quiet. The temple at night feels like it is breathing very slowly, not in movement that can be seen, but in presence that can be felt. A quiet expansion and settling, as if the entire structure is resting after a long and steady day. Inside the small chamber, the priest sleeps now, not deeply all at once, but in a gentle unfolding of rest. The lamp in the corner continues its soft glow. Its flame has become even calmer, shrinking slightly, yet remaining steady enough to keep the darkness from becoming complete. The light does not dominate the room. It only accompanies it. Outside the chamber, the corridors are almost entirely silent. A faint sound appears now and then. Soft footsteps from another priest making his way to rest, or the distant closing of a wooden door. But each sound is brief, quickly absorbed into the stillness of the temple. The structure itself feels patient. It has held this rhythm for generations, night after night, day after day. Inside the chamber, the priest's breathing is slow and even. His body is still now, fully resting. The events of the day no longer feel separate or distinct. They have blended into a single continuous flow, like the river outside the temple walls, moving without interruption, without urgency. Morning light, ritual washing, incense rising, offerings placed, evening lamps lit. All of it now exists only as a soft memory within the quiet of sleep. The lamp flickers once, then steadies again. Its light casts a faint glow across the stone floor, reaching only a short distance before fading into shadow. The room remains unchanged. The mats, the walls, the simple arrangement of space, all of it is still, as if waiting quietly for the next cycle that will begin when morning returns. But for now, there is only night. Deeper now, wider, more complete. The temple outside the chamber feels even more distant, though it is not far. It is simply quieter. The rhythm of movement has slowed to almost nothing. Only the presence of sleeping figures, scattered through different resting spaces, remains as a reminder that life continues within these walls, even in silence. The air inside the chamber cools slightly. The priest shifts once subtly as sleep deepens, then becomes still again. The lamp's glow softens further, as if agreeing with the night itself that brightness should now be gentle. Time continues without shape here. There are no markers, no divisions, only the ongoing presence of rest. Outside, above the temple, the stars remain unchanged. They do not move quickly. They do not announce themselves. They simply exist, steady and distant, watching over the land as they have always done. The Nile continues its quiet journey beyond the temple walls, unseen but constant, flowing in its own unbroken rhythm. Within the chamber, the priest's breathing blends fully with the stillness. There is no separation now between him and the quiet around him. Both are part of the same calm presence. The lamp flickers again, very softly, then holds steady. The night continues, not advancing, not retreating, just existing. And within it, everything rests in a deep and peaceful silence that holds the entire temple gently until the first hint of morning will one day return. The night deepens further, though inside the temple there is no sense of it becoming heavier. It simply becomes more complete, more settled, like sand slowly coming to rest at the bottom of still water. The small chamber remains unchanged. The priest continues to sleep, his breathing steady and unbroken. The lamp in the corner has grown even quieter now. Its flame is small, but does not struggle. It holds its shape with calm persistence, casting just enough light to keep the room gently visible. Shadows lie softly along the edges of the walls. They do not move much anymore. Even time feels like it has softened its presence here. Outside the chamber, the temple is almost entirely still. Only a few faint sounds drift through the corridors, distant, brief, and quickly gone. A soft step, a quiet shift of fabric, the subtle closing of a space being prepared for full night rest. Each sound belongs to someone who is also now part of the temple's night rhythm. No urgency remains anywhere. Only continuation in its quietest form. The priest does not dream in sharp images or restless motion. His rest is deepening in a way that is almost indistinguishable from stillness itself. The body remains, but it no longer carries the weight of movement. The mind rests without reaching. The temple holds this moment gently, as it holds all moments. Outside, the night sky stretches endlessly above the temple complex. The stars remain fixed in their distant places, unchanging in appearance, as if they are part of a pattern that does not belong to time in the same way the earth does. The Nile continues its slow and silent flow, unseen, unbroken. The land rests between river and sky, and the temple rests within it. Inside the chamber, the lamp flickers faintly, a small shift in flame, then stillness again. The light it gives is now barely more than a presence. Not illumination in the usual sense, but a reminder that warmth and care still exist within the quiet. The priest turns slightly in his sleep. A natural, gentle movement, then becomes still again. Nothing in the room changes, and yet everything feels subtly connected, as if the space itself is breathing in a slow, almost imperceptible rhythm. The stone floor holds the memory of the day's footsteps, The walls hold the echoes of soft voices and ritual movements. The air holds traces of incense that have long since faded, yet still feel present in a quiet way. All of it remains, not active, but not gone. The temple at night is not empty, is full of what has passed through it. The lamp's flame steadies again. Outside the chamber, deeper within the temple, a final round of quiet checking takes place. A priest walking slowly through corridors, ensuring that lamps are secure, that doors are closed properly, that nothing is left unsettled. Each action is simple, careful, unhurried. Then silence returns once more. Inside the chamber, the sleeping priest remains still. The night continues, not moving forward in a visible way, but extending itself gently across time, holding everything within a calm and uninterrupted presence. And so the temple remains in rest, a vast structure filled with quiet, holding the memory of the day and the promise of its return as the night flows slowly onward without end. The night has reached its deepest tone, not in darkness alone, but in silence that feels complete, as if the entire temple has settled into a shared breath that moves very slowly, almost imperceptibly. Inside the chamber, the priest remains asleep. His body is still fully given to rest now. The movements that once defined his day have faded completely from him, leaving only the quiet continuation of life in its most peaceful form. The lamp in the corner continues to burn. Its flame is now very small, a soft, steady point of light that barely reaches beyond its own gentle circle. It does not flicker with uncertainty. It simply exists, calm and unwavering, as if it understands the importance of its quiet presence. The room feels neither bright nor dark. It exists in a balanced space between the two. The stone walls no longer feel cold. They feel neutral, as if they too are resting alongside everything else. Outside the chamber, the temple is almost entirely still. Even the faintest sounds have become rare now. When they appear, they are distant and brief. Soft movement in a corridor, a careful step from someone checking a lamp, the quiet closing of a door that seals another space into night. Each sound fades quickly, leaving silence behind again. The priest's breathing remains slow and steady. There is no tension in it, no interruption, only continuity. The night does not press forward. It spreads gently, like oil on still water, covering everything without force. The temple holds this stillness naturally. It has done so for countless nights before this one, and it will continue to do so long after. The lamp flickers once, a small, delicate movement, then steadies again. Its light touches the edge of the mat where the priest rests, then softens as it reaches the far wall. Nothing in the room demands attention. Everything is simply present. The passage of time becomes less noticeable here. There are no markers left to define it, only the ongoing state of rest. Outside, beyond the temple walls, the world continues its quiet existence. The Nile flows steadily, though unseen. The desert air cools slowly under the stars. The land breathes in its own way, slow and ancient. Inside, the temple mirrors that rhythm, not as imitation, but as part of the same larger stillness. The priest shifts slightly again in sleep, a subtle adjustment, almost like a continuation of breath rather than movement. Then he becomes still once more. The lamp's flame responds with a soft, almost invisible sway, then returns to calm. The chamber remains unchanged. The night deepens further, though there is no point at which it feels like it is changing. It simply continues, and in that continuation, everything becomes more peaceful, more settled, more complete. The temple does not wait for morning. It simply rests in the certainty that morning will come. And within that quiet understanding, the night carries on, holding every space, every stone, and every sleeping presence in a soft and unbroken calm. The night holds steady, as if it has found its most comfortable shape. There is no movement within it that feels separate or distinct. Everything blends into a single, continuous stillness that stretches across the temple and beyond it. Inside the small chamber, the priest continues to sleep. His breathing remains slow and even, almost indistinguishable from the quiet of the room itself. The boundary between body and space feels softened, as if both are part of the same gentle rhythm. The lamp in the corner is now very low. Its flame is reduced to a small, steady glow that feels more like presence than light. It does not flicker with effort. It does not struggle to remain lit. It simply continues, calm and enduring. The shadows in the room have deepened slightly, though they no longer feel heavy. They rest along the walls like soft fabric, unmoving, unthreatening. Everything in the chamber feels settled into completion. Outside, the temple remains in its deepest phase of night. The corridors are almost entirely silent now. Any remaining movement has faded into long stretches of stillness. Occasionally, a faint sound travels through the structure. A distant step, a soft shift of cloth, but it is brief, dissolving almost immediately back into silence. The temple no longer feels active. It feels held, as if the entire structure is resting within a larger quiet that surrounds it completely. The priest sleeps on. There is no change in his state, no interruption, only continuation. The lamp's glow reflects faintly on the nearby stone floor, forming a small, steady pool of light that does not expand or shrink in any noticeable way. Time here does not feel like it is passing. It feels like it has slowed to a point where it can no longer be measured in usual ways. Outside the chamber, beyond the temple walls, the world remains unchanged in its own quiet motion. The Nile continues its long, unseen journey. The stars remain fixed in their distant positions. The desert holds its cool night air without disturbance. All of it exists together in a wide, steady stillness. Inside the temple, that stillness becomes even more contained, more intimate. The priest shifts very slightly again in his sleep. A natural movement, like the turning of breath itself. Then he becomes still once more. The lamp responds with a faint flicker, so small it is almost not visible. then steadies again, as if agreeing with the silence around it. Nothing in the chamber calls for attention. Everything simply remains. The stone, the light, the air, the sleeping figure, all of it existing within the same quiet presence. The night continues without change, not progressing toward anything, not receding, only holding. The temple, vast and ancient, rests in this shared stillness, as it has done countless times before, and as it will continue to do when this night, too, eventually softens into the first trace of morning. But for now, there's only this. A deep, unbroken calm. And within it, everything remains gently at rest. The night no longer feels like it has a beginning or an end. It feels instead like a wide, continuous presence that simply exists around the temple, holding it without pressure, without movement, without change. Inside the chamber, the priest remains asleep. His rest has deepened into something very steady, where even the sense of time passing becomes faint and distant. There's no awareness of hours, no sense of waiting, only the quiet rhythm of sleep itself, slow and even like a soft current that never breaks. The lamp in the corner has become almost part of the darkness now. Its flame is so small that it appears more like a gentle memory of light than a source of it. Still, it does not fade. It holds, quietly, patiently. The stone walls of the chamber feel unchanged, yet somehow more settled than before. The long hours of night have softened their presence, as if they, too, have entered a state of rest. Outside the chamber, the temple remains still. The corridors are now nearly without sound. Even the occasional distant movement has become rare, and when it appears, it feels like it belongs more to memory than to the present moment. The structure itself seems to breathe very slowly, not in motion, but in presence. A quiet expansion and return that is barely perceptible. The priest turns slightly in his sleep. A small, natural adjustment. Then stillness returns immediately. The lamp flickers faintly in response. A soft ripple of light that quickly settles again. The balance of the room remains unchanged. Inside the temple, there is no urgency anywhere. No expectation, no direction, only continuity. Beyond the walls, the world outside continues its own silent course. The river flows steadily through darkness. The land rests beneath a sky filled with distant, unmoving stars. The night air cools gently over fields and stone, carrying with it the deep calm of the hours before dawn. Inside, the temple mirrors that vast stillness, not as reflection, but as part of the same living quiet. The priest sleeps on. His breathing remains soft and steady. There are no dreams that disturb the rhythm of the room. Only rest, pure and uninterrupted. The lamp holds its final steady glow. Small, enduring. It marks the presence of life within the silence, without breaking it. Time continues to soften, not moving forward in any noticeable way, but stretching gently, as if it no longer needs to be measured. The temple, ancient and familiar, remains fully within this calm. Every corridor, Every chamber, every stone, all resting in the same shared stillness. And in the center of one of those quiet spaces, the priest remains asleep, carried by the same rhythm that has guided his entire day, now dissolved into the deeper silence of night. Everything is still, everything is steady, and the night continues without end. The stillness of the night grows even more complete, though it does not change in any visible way. It simply continues to deepen in a quiet, natural progression, like water settling after all movement has long since passed. Inside the chamber, the priest remains in sleep. His breathing is steady, almost indistinguishable from the silence around him. There is no tension in his form, no remaining trace of the day's movements. Only rest, simple and unbroken. The lamp in the corner still burns, but now it feels even smaller. Its glow is faint, resting gently against the edge of darkness rather than pushing it away. The flame does not struggle. It does not waver. It simply exists, calm and unwavering in its quiet duty. The shadows across the chamber have softened further. They no longer feel like defined shapes. They feel like part of the space itself, blending into the stone and air in a way that makes everything feel unified. Outside the chamber, the temple is almost entirely silent. The corridors hold no visible movement now. Any remaining activity has faded into long stretches of stillness, so deep that even the idea of motion feels distant. Yet the temple is not empty. It is full of resting presence, of spaces held in quiet care, of structures that have witnessed countless cycles of day and night, and now simply continue to exist within them. The priest shifts slightly once more in his sleep, a small, natural movement that does not disturb anything around him. Then stillness returns immediately. The lamp's flame responds with the slightest tremor of light, as if acknowledging the movement, then settles again into calm. Time continues in its softened form. It does not advance or retreat. It simply extends. Outside, beyond the temple walls, the night remains wide and steady. The Nile flows on, unseen but constant. The land rests beneath the open sky, where the stars remain fixed in their ancient patterns, unchanged by anything happening below. The desert air holds its coolness, gentle and patient. Everything in the world seems to share the same slow rhythm. Inside the temple, that rhythm becomes even more contained, more focused, more still. The chamber feels almost suspended in quiet. The priest's breathing remains even. There is no sign of waking, no interruption of rest, only continuation of the same deep calm that has held him since the final moments of the day. The lamp remains the only movement in the room, and even that movement is so slight it feels more like presence than action. A soft glow, a steady point in the surrounding darkness. Nothing changes, and yet everything feels complete. The temple does not wait. It simply rests, holding every corridor, every chamber, every sleeping presence within its ancient structure as the night continues to unfold without interruption. And in that unfolding, there is no urgency, No direction, only the gentle persistence of stillness that stretches on, quiet and endless. The night now, but in the stillness of night, they feel even more ancient, as if they have withdrawn further into their long history of holding silence. Outside the chamber, the temple is almost entirely motionless. The corridors are dark now, except for a few distant lamps that continue to burn in isolated points. Even those lights feel subdued, as if they are conserving their presence rather than actively illuminating anything. No footsteps pass through the halls. No doors open. No movement interrupts the calm. It is a silence that is spread through every level of the temple, from the outer courtyards to the deepest inner rooms. The priest shifts slightly in sleep again. A small adjustment, almost indistinguishable from stillness itself. Then everything returns to quiet once more. The lamp flickers very gently in response, then steadies without change. Time continues in its softened form, not measured, not marked, only existing. Beyond the temple walls, the night remains vast and unbroken. The Nile flows steadily, carrying the quiet movement of water through darkness. The land around it rests beneath a sky filled with distant stars that do not shift or hurry. Everything in a natural world seems to mirror the same calm rhythm. Inside, the temple becomes part of that same rhythm, not separate, not distinct, but aligned with it. The chamber feels even more unified now. The air, the light, the stone, and the sleeping figure all exist within the same quiet presence. There is no division between them, only stillness. The lamp's flame remains the only point of motion, though even that motion is so slight it feels almost like memory. The priest remains asleep, deep, steady, undisturbed, and the night continues without interruption, not moving forward in any noticeable way, not changing direction, only extending its calm across the temple, holding everything within it as if time itself has decided to rest. And in that rest, the silence remains complete, gentle, and unbroken. The night has now settled into its most silent form. It no longer feels like something that is passing. It feels instead like something that simply is, surrounding the temple completely, holding it in a state of quiet permanence. Inside the chamber, the priest continues to sleep. His rest is deep now, the kind of rest where even the sense of awareness becomes soft and distant. His breathing remains steady, almost blending with the stillness of the room itself. There is no movement in his body that suggests interruption. Only calm, only continuity. The lamp in the corner has grown even dimmer. Its flame is small, but does not weaken. It does not flicker with uncertainty. It holds its presence gently, like a quiet companion that refuses to leave the darkness entirely alone. The light it gives is barely enough to trace the outline of the mat and the lower edge of the wall. Everything else rests in shadow. Not harsh shadow, but soft and settled, as if the darkness itself has learned to be still. Outside the chamber, the temple is almost entirely without sound. The corridors that once carried footsteps and movement throughout the day are now motionless. Even the faintest traces of activity have faded into long stretches of silence. The structure feels vast, yet calm, as if it has withdrawn inward for the night, holding all its spaces in a shared state of rest. The priest shifts slightly in his sleep, a small movement that rises and falls like breath itself. Then stillness returns immediately. The lamp responds with a faint tremor of light, then steadies once again. Nothing is disturbed. Everything remains balanced. Time continues in its softened form. It does not move forward in any visible way. It does not pause. It simply extends like a wide and gentle current that carries everything without effort. Beyond the temple walls, the night stretches across the land. The Nile continues its steady flow, unseen but constant, moving through the darkness with quiet certainty. The desert rests under a vast sky where the stars remain fixed in their ancient positions, unchanged and unhurried. The air is cool now, holding the deep calm of late night. Inside the temple, that calm becomes even more concentrated, more intimate. The chamber feels as if it has been separated gently from the rest of the world, not by distance, but by stillness itself. The priest remains asleep. His presence is steady, unbroken. There is no sign of waking, only rest, deep and complete. The lamp continues its quiet glow, so faint now that it feels like a memory of light rather than light itself. It remains, and in its remaining, it holds a small anchor within the surrounding darkness. Everything else is still. Everything else is calm. The temple does not wait for anything. It simply continues to exist within the night, fully at rest, fully at peace. And as the hours stretch onward without change, the silence becomes complete, surrounding every stone, every corridor, and every sleeping presence in a soft and unending calm. The night has reached a point where it no longer feels divided into hours. It feels whole, unbroken, as if the temple and everything within it has entered a single, continuous state of quiet that nothing disturbs. Inside the chamber, the priest remains asleep. His breathing continues with the same steady rhythm it has held for a long time now, soft and even, like a distant current moving through still water. There is no tension in his body, no sign of wakefulness, only the deep, settled calm of rest. The lamp in the corner has become almost entirely subdued. Its flame is so small that it feels more like a suggestion of light than actual illumination. Still, it does not fade completely. It remains present, quietly resisting the full embrace of darkness, though without effort or struggle. The chamber itself feels even more unified now. Walls, floor, air, and shadow all blend into a single calm presence that holds the sleeping figure gently within it. Outside the chamber, the temple is fully quiet. The corridors are still. The courtyards are still. Even the distant spaces where activity once filled the day are now resting in complete silence. No footsteps pass through the halls. No doors open. No movement breaks the stillness. It is as if the entire structure has exhaled and chosen not to inhale again just yet. The priest shifts slightly once more in sleep, a subtle movement almost invisible in its softness. Then he becomes still again. The lamp flickers faintly in response, then steadies. Nothing changes beyond that. Time continues in its softened form. It does not advance in any visible direction. It does not retreat. It simply remains like a calm field that stretches endlessly in every direction. Outside the temple, the world continues its quiet motion. The Nile flows steadily, carrying its ancient rhythm through the darkness. The land rests beneath a sky that remains unchanged, filled with distant stars that do not move or hurry. The night air is cool and still, holding everything in a gentle balance. Inside the temple, that balance becomes even more contained, more focused, more complete. The chamber feels almost weightless in its silence. The priest's breathing remains steady. There is no interruption, no shift toward waking, only rest that continues without resistance. The lamp remains the only point of light, and even that light feels more like presence than illumination now. Soft, enduring, quietly holding its place in the surrounding darkness. Everything is still, everything is calm, and the temple remains in this deep state of night, not waiting, not moving forward, but simply existing in a soft and unbroken silence that holds all things gently until the first unseen approach of morning will eventually come. The night feels endless now, not because it is heavy, but because it is so quiet that time itself seems to dissolve inside it. Within the chamber, the priest remains asleep. His rest is deep and steady, carried by a rhythm so consistent it feels like part of the room itself. Nothing in his posture suggests disturbance. Nothing suggests change, only the calm continuation of sleep. The lamp in the corner is now very faint. Its flame is so small that it seems to hover at the edge of disappearing, yet it continues to hold. Not strongly, not weakly, simply present, as if it has chosen to remain as a quiet witness to the night. The light it casts barely reaches the mat where the priest lies. Most of the room rests in shadow now, but the shadow is not heavy. It feels gentle, like a soft covering that does not press down, only surrounds. Outside the chamber, the temple remains in complete stillness. The corridors are empty of movement. The courtyards are quiet under the night sky. Even the distant rooms that once held preparation and ritual now rest in silence, so deep it feels almost like permanence. There is no sound of footsteps, no shifting of objects, only the quiet presence of the structure itself, holding its own calm weight in the darkness. The priest turns slightly in his sleep again, a small, natural motion that fades almost instantly back into stillness. The lamp responds with the faintest flicker, then steadies once more. Nothing else changes. The night continues in its softened form, not progressing, not receding, only existing. Beyond the temple walls, the world remains wide and steady. The Nile continues its slow, ancient flow through darkness. The land rests beneath a sky filled with stars that remain fixed, unchanging, as if time does not touch them in the same way it touches the earth. The air is cool and still, carrying the deep quiet of late night. Inside the temple, this stillness becomes even more concentrated, more contained. The chamber feels fully enclosed within silence now, as if nothing outside of it exists except this calm, unbroken moment. The priest's breathing remains even. There is no sign of waking, no shift in rhythm, only the continuation of deep rest. The lamp holds its final faint glow. It does not brighten. It does not fade. It simply remains a quiet point within the surrounding darkness. Everything else is still. Everything else is calm. And the temple continues to rest within the night, fully immersed in silence that stretches gently across every space, holding all things in a soft and unbroken peace that continues without end. The night has settled so deeply now that even the idea of time feels distant, as if it belongs to another layer of existence outside the temple. Inside the chamber, the priest continues to sleep. His body is still, fully surrendered to rest. The steady rhythm of his breathing remains unchanged, quiet, and even blending so closely with the silence that it almost feels like part of it rather than something separate. There is no movement that disturbs him, no sound that reaches him, only the soft continuation of sleep. The lamp in the corner has become extremely faint now. Its flame is barely more than a small point of warmth in the darkness. It does not flicker with uncertainty, nor does it burn with strength. It simply remains, holding on with quiet patience, as if its only purpose is to acknowledge that light still exists within the night. The chamber feels almost completely absorbed by shadow, yet the shadow itself is not heavy or cold. It is gentle, like fabric laid carefully over stone. Outside the chamber, the temple is still beyond measure. The corridors are silent and empty. The courtyards are motionless under the night sky. Even the distant parts of the structure, where earlier in the day movement and ritual filled every corner, are now resting in complete stillness. No footsteps echo. No doors open or close. No objects are carried or set down. Everything has paused into a shared calm. The priest shifts very slightly into sleep again. A natural, almost invisible adjustment. Then stillness returns immediately. The lamp responds with a faint shimmer of light, then settles once more into quiet. Time continues in its softened state. It does not move forward or backward. It simply remains like a wide and quiet space that holds everything gently, without pressure. Outside the temple, the world continues its slow and steady rhythm. The Nile flows without interruption, its movement unseen but constant. The land rests beneath a vast sky where the stars remain fixed in their ancient positions, unchanged by the passing of hours. The air is cool and still, carrying the deep calm of the late night into every corner of the earth. Inside the temple, that calm becomes even more contained, more intimate. The chamber feels fully separated from all noise, all movement, all change. Only stillness remains. The priest's breathing continues at the same steady pace. There is no sign of waking, no disruption in rest. Only the deep continuity of sleep that feels as though it could extend indefinitely. The lamp holds its final faint glow, so small now that it feels almost like a memory of light rather than light itself. It remains, and in its remaining, it gently marks the presence of life within the surrounding darkness. Everything else is still. Everything else is calm. The temple continues to rest within the night, not moving toward anything, not waiting for anything, but simply existing in a quiet and unbroken silence that holds all things gently as the hours pass without notice. The night has become so quiet that it no longer feels like it is passing at all. It feels instead like a vast, steady presence resting over everything, unchanged and unchanging, holding the temple in a calm that has no edges. Inside the chamber, the priest continues to sleep. His rest is deep now, fully settled into the kind of sleep where even thought no longer stirs. His breathing remains slow and even, almost indistinguishable from the stillness of the room itself. There is no movement that breaks this calm, no sound that interrupts it, only this soft continuation of being at rest. The lamp in the corner is now extremely dim. Its flame is so faint that it feels almost suspended between presence and absence. It does not flicker in any noticeable way. It simply holds on, as if it has accepted the night completely and chosen only to remain quietly within it. The chamber feels almost entirely shaped by shadow now. Yet the shadow is not empty. It feels full in a quiet way, as if it holds everything that has passed through the room during the day, resting gently within its depth. Outside the chamber, the temple is fully still. The corridors are silent. The courtyards are silent. Even the deepest inner passages carry no trace of movement now. It is as though the entire structure has entered a shared state of rest, where every part of it exists in the same calm rhythm. No footsteps, no doors, no movement of light or object, only silence. The priest shifts once more in sleep, a very small motion, almost imperceptible. Then stillness returns at once. The lamp reacts with the faintest possible tremor of light, then steadies again into near complete stillness. Time continues in its softened form. It does not feel like progression anymore. It feels like continuation without direction. A long, quiet presence stretching across everything without beginning or end. Beyond the temple walls, the world remains vast and unchanged. The Nile continues its slow, silent flow through the darkness. The land rests beneath a sky filled with distant stars that remain unmoving, as if they exist outside of time's reach. The air is cool and still, holding the deep quiet of the night in every breath. Inside the temple, this quiet becomes even more concentrated, more complete. The chamber feels fully enclosed within stillness, as if nothing outside of it exists except this gentle, unbroken moment. The priest's breathing remains steady. There is no sign of waking, no change in rhythm, only rest, deep and continuous. The lamp remains the only point of light, and even that light feels almost weightless now. A soft glow that exists not to illuminate, but simply to remain. Everything else is still. Everything else is calm. And the temple continues to rest within the night, holding all things in a quiet that stretches gently onward, without urgency, without direction, and without end. The night has reached a stillness that feels almost absolute, not silent in a way that is empty, but silent in a way that feels full, like something vast and unseen holding everything gently in place. Inside the chamber, the priest remains asleep. His body is completely at rest now, fully surrendered to the quiet rhythm that has carried him through the night. His breathing continues with the same steady softness, neither changing nor breaking, simply existing in calm continuity. There is no movement that interrupts him, no disturbance in the air, only the deep, settled presence of sleep. The lamp in the corner is now at its faintest point. Its flame is so small that it feels almost like a thought rather than a source of light. It does not flicker. It does not struggle. It remains steady in its quiet endurance, holding the last trace of illumination within the chamber. The room is almost entirely shaped by shadow now, but the shadow is not heavy or oppressive. It feels soft, like the final layer of a long and peaceful covering. Outside the chamber, the temple is entirely still. The corridors are empty of movement. The courtyards lie quiet beneath the night sky. Even the deeper inner halls, where rituals once unfolded in gentle sequence, now rest in complete silence. No footsteps echo, no doors open, no lamps are adjusted. Everything has reached a state of shared rest. The priest shifts slightly in sleep, a small, natural motion that fades almost instantly. Then stillness returns. The lamp responds with the faintest shimmer of light, then steadies once again into quiet. Time continues in its softened state. It does not move forward. It does not pause. It simply remains, like a vast calm that holds everything equally without direction or demand. Beyond the temple walls, the world continues its slow and ancient rhythm. The Nile flows steadily through darkness, unseen but constant. The land rests beneath a sky filled with distant stars that remain fixed, unchanged, as if they belong to a stillness deeper than time itself. The air is cool and unmoving, carrying the deep calm of the night into every corner of existence. Inside the temple, that calm becomes even more complete, more unified. The chamber feels fully enclosed within silence, as if nothing exists beyond this moment of rest. The priest's breathing remains even. There is no sign of waking, only the continuation of deep and peaceful sleep. The lamp holds its final faint glow, so small now that it feels almost weightless, like a memory of light lingering gently within the darkness. It remains, and in its remaining, It quietly marks the presence of life within the surrounding stillness. Everything else is still. Everything else is calm. The temple continues to rest within the night, not moving toward anything, not waiting for anything, but simply existing in a soft, unbroken silence that stretches endlessly through time. The night now feels like it has no edges, no beginning that can be remembered clearly, and no end that feels near. It is simply present, surrounding everything in the temple like a quiet ocean that does not move, yet is always there. Inside the chamber, the priest continues to sleep. His rest has become fully deep, the kind of sleep where even the sense of being separate from the space around him begins to fade. His breathing is slow, steady, and uninterrupted, blending into the stillness so naturally that it feels like part of the chamber itself. There is no movement in his body that breaks this calm. Only rest, only quiet continuation. The lamp in the corner is now at its weakest point of light. Its flame is so small, it almost disappears into the surrounding darkness. It continues to exist, not as a strong source of illumination, but as a quiet presence that refuses to fully leave the night. The room feels almost entirely shaped by shadow now. But this shadow is not empty. It feels full in a soft and quiet way, as if it carries the memory of everything that passed through the chamber during the day and holds it gently without weight. Outside the chamber, the temple is completely still. There is no movement anywhere within its corridors. No sound of footsteps. No shifting of objects. No faint echoes of activity. It is as if the entire structure has entered a shared state of deep rest, where every space exists in the same calm rhythm. The priest turns slightly in his sleep again, a subtle, natural motion. Then stillness returns immediately. The lamp responds with a barely visible flicker, then steadies once more into quiet. Time continues in its softened form. It no longer feels like it is passing. It feels like it is simply existing, stretched gently across everything without direction or urgency. Beyond the temple walls, the world continues its quiet motion. The Nile flows steadily through the darkness, unseen but constant. The land rests beneath a sky filled with distant stars that remain fixed, unchanged, as though they belong to a deeper kind of stillness. The air is cool and unmoving, holding the deep calm of night in every part of the world it touches. Inside the temple, this calm becomes even more complete, more enclosed. The chamber feels fully surrounded by silence, as if nothing exists beyond it except this single, quiet moment. The priest's breathing remains steady. There is no sign of waking, no change in rhythm, only rest, deep and uninterrupted. The lamp holds its final faint glow, so small now that it feels almost like it belongs more to memory than to light itself. Yet it remains, and in its remaining, it quietly marks the presence of life within the surrounding darkness. Everything else is still. Everything else is calm. The temple continues to rest within the night, fully immersed in a silence that stretches gently onward without movement. without urgency, and without end. The night no longer feels like something passing. It feels like something settled, as if it has gently folded itself over the temple and chosen not to move. Inside the chamber, the priest remains asleep. His rest is now very deep, the kind where the body seems fully given to silence. His breathing continues with slow, even rhythm, so steady that it almost feels like part of the room's own stillness rather than a separate sound of life. There is no tension in him, no interruption, only continuation of quiet rest. The lamp in the corner has become almost nothing more than a faint presence. Its flame is so small now that it feels like it could vanish at any moment, yet it does not. It remains steady in a quiet way, holding on without effort, as if it understands that even the smallest trace of light belongs to the night. The chamber is now almost fully shaped by darkness, but it is not a darkness that feels empty. It feels soft, like a thick, gentle silence resting over everything equally. Outside the chamber, the temple is completely still. No movement passes through its corridors. No sound reaches its inner spaces. Even the memory of daytime activity feels far away now, as if it belongs to another time entirely. The structure holds itself in a shared state of rest, every part aligned with the same calm rhythm. The priest shifts slightly in sleep, a small, natural motion that barely disturbs anything at all. Then he becomes still again. The lamp reacts with the faintest shimmer, then steadies once more into near complete quiet. Time continues without shape. It does not feel like progression. It does not feel like waiting. It simply exists like a wide and gentle stillness that surrounds everything equally. Beyond the temple walls, the world continues in its own quiet way. The Nile flows steadily through darkness, unseen but unbroken. The land rests beneath a sky filled with distant stars that remain fixed, as if they are part of a stillness deeper than movement itself. The air is cool and unmoving, carrying the deep calm of the night into every space it touches. Inside the temple, this calm becomes even more focused, more contained. The chamber feels fully enclosed within silence now, as if nothing exists beyond this moment of rest. The priest's breathing remains even. There is no sign of waking, no change in rhythm, only sleep, deep and continuous. The lamp holds its final trace of light, so faint now that it feels almost like it belongs to memory rather than reality. It remains, and in its remaining, it gently marks the presence of life within the surrounding stillness. Everything else is still. Everything else is calm. The temple continues to rest within the night, not moving forward, not holding back, but simply existing in a soft and unbroken silence that stretches quietly through all things. The night in the temple does not end in a clear moment. It simply begins to loosen, very slowly, without announcement, without change that can be measured. Inside the small chamber, the priest still sleeps. But now, far beyond the temple walls, the first trace of something new begins to exist. Not light yet, not morning, but a gentle thinning of the night itself, as if the darkness is no longer as deep as it was before. The lamp in the corner still burns, very faint, almost gone, but still there, holding on for no reason other than the quiet persistence of what has always remained through the night. The priest does not wake. Not yet. His breathing continues in the same steady rhythm, unchanged by anything happening beyond him. The temple remains still around him, as it has been for hours that felt both long and weightless. Then, slowly something shifts, not in sound, not in movement, but in the quality of the air itself. A softness enters it, a subtle easing, as if the world is remembering that it will continue again. Outside, the darkness begins to lose its deepest tone, not suddenly, not dramatically, just gently, like fabric relaxing after being held for too long. The temple, still quiet, begins to feel slightly different. Not because it moves, but because time around it does. The priest remains asleep for a few moments longer. Then, almost without effort, his breathing changes slightly. A deeper inhale, a slower return. The lamp flickers once, not fading, not strengthening, just reacting as if acknowledging something unseen. The chamber is still, but no longer completely sealed in night. There is a softness now at its edges, a suggestion of change that does not disturb anything, only arrives. Outside the temple, the first hint of dawn is not yet visible, but exists in feeling, a quiet pressure lifting the night upward, gently without force. The temple does not rush toward it. It does not resist it. It simply exists within it, as it always has. The priest finally stirs. Not fully awake, just returning. A slow awareness of body, of space, of silence that is no longer as deep as before. The lamp is still there, almost extinguished now, its final glow holding through the last moments of night. And in that quiet transition between night that is ending and day that has not yet arrived, the temple remains still. The priest breathes again, opens his eyes slightly, and the long, quiet routine of his life waits gently for the next day to begin. Not loudly, not suddenly, but in the same soft rhythm that has always defined his world. Slow, steady, and calm. The night does not disappear. It simply gives way, and the temple remains, as it always has been, quiet, patient, and gently alive in the space between darkness and light.